because of Pier 6. I know a friend of mine who works in the mechanical department. When they had a decline in coal, they cut 3 shifts that day at the company to 2 shifts because coal was really down. My friend who works in the mechanical department, he works 3rd shift, 11 to 7. Glad to see the coal is back on the rise for the company because that's where they get a lot of their revenue. The next one, I want to talk about the Portsmouth Beltline here. The next one is going to be an NS train on the Commonwealth. This is a local run that I saw that was going back to Norfolk Southern's Portlock Yard in Chesapeake. And this is the Heritage Unit. This is my favorite.
All right, here we have the Norfolk Portsmouth Beltline logo here in South Norfolk.
And that's their office right
I thought you
there.
could hear the massive RS-3L in this engine.
I set the camera down so I can wave to the current. Beautiful engine. And that's him running in reverse. And this line goes right directly back to the Norfolk Southern where they interchange.
Look at that. As he will leave the Beltline also here. Oh, he's crossed over some bad track.
There was one section, I will zoom in on it, and there was a bad little section of the track right there. But these are the grain cars we see. They're different styles, and plus there's a Rock Island hopper there. They've been out since I think the 70s, but they're really common to find in this area. There are the drop doors below the car where the grain drops out, and that's how they unload the cars from the bottom. And sometimes they'll unload from the top, where they'll open the top itself, then take like a big vacuum and suck it all up and put it inside a silo to be kept dry. But he's going pretty slow. He only going like 15 miles an hour through here.
And I'm really surprised the gates are not down on this crossing.
I mean, this is all for Norfolk Southern. This is all for Norfolk Southern.
Let me move a second. Let me zoom in where he's hitting that low spot. Watch the wheels. See, he's kind of dipping right there. It's a low spot in the track, and that needs to be attended to. See, look again. Comes another set of wheels. And even on the other side too, let me shift.
And track maintenance is very important. They have track crews that will actually go and maintain the track. So, small clip of this, and I will shift to the final video of the presentation, which is one of my favorites. My buddy was actually an engineer on the train. This is the day they were running late. Then this was on the Commonwealth. This is NSID V14 that comes now from Norfolk, and it comes to Portsmouth because of a recent change that they've made with this train.
Engineer. So here we have 9326.
And they can only go 20 miles an hour on this line here.
9326. And 4294.
I will lower the window in a minute.
Oh, my wonder so you can see the train again.
And see, this is all the double stacks that one of the trains dropped off, and this train's responsible for getting them.
V14, 28.
Lots of the containers on this are 20, 40, 45, and 53-foot containers. But for the Commonwealth, they handle 20, 40, and 45s. Anything that's 53 foot will go straight to the terminal. That's just a company regulation. I don't know the reason behind that. But like I said before, lots of different names. CMA is up there, OOCL is up there, APL is up there.
Really keeping it up today.
There's a triple stack there. When I said up to 3 in each car, that's a triple stack there. with two 20-foots on that the 45 is sitting, the 40 or the 45 is sitting on top of them.
I was not able to see VO7 last night.
It's counterpart.
I'd say now I think, according to some of my rail fan friends. But last night was 236 and 822.
I recapped them last night, from that previous night. But lots of them. Hyundai is Korean, as everyone knows. That's also the car manufacturer. But they're the largest ship manufacturer in the world. So, thought I would show you all a little clip of that. Now, another question that Dr. Paul asked me to answer was, how does the supply chain process apply to this area? The supply chain process is heavily used in this area because we have major ports to ship containers with general merchandise overseas and from coast to coast. The railroads are contributing to this process by putting together long, massive trains, taking more trucks off the highway and taking them to the port. That makes our roads safer, and it also reduces some accidents. But we burn less fuel with these engines. As much horsepower as these engines have, they're equipped to burn less fuel. And I'll talk about tier emissions in a minute. Now, environmental efforts have been a strong effort for the past about 10 years. The EPA has been pushing for Tier 4 regulations. What is a tier rating and what does this mean? Tier 4 is the emissions level that emits carbon and particle matter at a very low level. Tier 4 emits the least, and still they burn a lot less fuel. As you can see here, we have a Norfolk Southern ET44AC locomotive that was built by General Electric's plant in Fort Worth, Texas, where all the assembly is now taking place. This unit was made last year. Norfolk Southern has put in 2 orders of these. Almost every railroad has ordered them except Canadian Pacific and Kansas City Southern. Everybody else has these engines. They're equipped with 4,400 horsepower, like the other ones that you've seen today, but they've also been equipped with new electronics and also with the new Tier 4 regulations. And the back fin, I think it just reduces the amount of air pollutants that goes inside the fins. So I was able to get good shots of this. This was taken in Wakefield. It was set off because of a broken coupler. Just to wrap stuff up, the supply chain process is vital to this area specifically, and also vital all over the nation, because all the modes of transportation transport our goods from place to place and coast to coast, while trying to reduce fuel usage and try to get it there the safe and most efficient way we can. Thank you very much, and go Hampton Roads Railroading. Thank you.
And you're available to hang around for a few minutes?
Yes, I'll be available for just a little bit. I have class in here at 1 o'clock, so I'm glad to stay back and answer any of your questions, and I'll just be sitting right back there.
Thank you.
I
Yes,
have a
ma'am.
quick question. I was going to ask you about triple stack. When I think triple stack, I think on top of each other.
Yes.
So is that the true definition of triple stack that you showed?
Yes, yes. We have single stacks, which is just one container. We have a double stack that has 2 containers, and the triple stack has 2 20-foot containers sandwiched. I mean, the 40-foot container is on top of them.
Yeah, because I was wondering about getting under bridges and stuff, because again, I was thinking this, but yeah, that's good then.
Yeah, funny thing you mentioned that, because the railroads have to have special specifications for it to accommodate that traffic. Like I mentioned on CSX, they expanded one of the terminals in the nation's capital to accommodate double and triple stacks. Norfolk Southern did a lot of that with the Heartland Corridor, which is one of the major corridors that they have over there that is specifically for container traffic. And it was a really successful project by Norfolk Southern. I have not rail fanned that, but that's one of my next places is to go on the Heartland Corridor. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Sandra.
Are certain sections of track owned by different companies and
Yes.
maintained by those companies?
Yes, that is a very good question. Depends on where you are. If it's the coal train, that's all Norfolk Southern trackage. That's the old Norfolk and Western. Now for the Norfolk Portsmouth Beltline and the Commonwealth. Funny thing that's mentioned. Shoreline companies like that don't own their own track. Even Amtrak doesn't own their own track. So what they do is, for Amtrak, they pay all the Class 1 railroads nationwide to use the track for for a number of years, I think. I think it's every year, not sure. But for the Commonwealth, Norfolk Southern and CSX pay them to use the track. Norfolk Portsmouth Beltline pays Norfolk Southern to use the track. Now the yard for South Norfolk and the little bit that went past their office, like the grain run, that's all their track.
So
I
they
would be glad to take a few
they
more.
would maintain those defector,
Yes.
those,
Those defect detectors, they're placed about every so many miles to make sure the train is in check. If a detector is not working, what the train crew will do is they will contact the train dispatcher for Norfolk Southern, it's Roanoke. For CSX, it's in Jacksonville now because they moved all the dispatchers down there. They'll say, okay, the defect detector at milepost 89.0 on NS, that's milepost Jack in the railroad book. They'll say, hey, the defect detector is not working. They'll say, okay, we'll get a maintainer out there to come take a look at it. And usually when something fails like that, the railroad is right on it. They fix it right then. Yes, ma'am.
So how do you drag her around with each train?
Funny thing you asked that. Funny thing you asked that. As some of you know, I'm a rail fan. I'm a rail fan. I'm a rail fan, and I rail fan with a bunch of guys. We go out once a week. Thursdays is our day, weather permitting. And what we do is we have scanners that you can get the railroad frequencies, but you cannot transmit because it is a federal offense. We use that. We also use Facebook. There are lots of railroad groups on Facebook. I'm a member of some of them. And there's a couple of them that are local that tells us, okay, NS 820 Coltrane just cleared Ivor, which is about 35 minutes from Suffolk, right there. They'll tell us where that is, so us in Suffolk will know, hey, this train's coming, we need to go and get our equipment ready. So, I think somebody else had another question. Yes, ma'am.
When you were talking about the caboose, what did you say the wheels for?
The brake wheels? The brake wheel is specifically to apply the brakes to that car specifically, but not the entire train. Brake wheels are a requirement on all freight cars, but they're not used much anymore because of the automatic brake system. The automatic brake system was invented in 1869 by Mr. George Westinghouse, which saved a guy from going on top of the train, manually braking each car to tell the train to stop. From the cab, he will have the train brake lever, which he can apply, and that air compressor in the locomotive will take that air from the locomotive all throughout the freight cars to give it the command to stop. If one of those air hoses is kinked, that car is not going to get the command to stop, and that's a runaway train. Yes, sir.
Say one of the brake lines isn't working, like say halfway through the cars. Does that mean that the rest of the cars aren't going to be able to get air because that one's kinked?
Okay. First of all, when an air hose is kinked, let's say halfway. Let's say one breaks halfway. The front portion of the train is going to stop. The second half of the train is not going to stop because once that kink is in that air hose, like a garden hose, the water flow is not going to go through the hose. The airflow is not going to go from the kinked air hose to the back of the train, and that's going to result in a derailment. So if one breaks, they have to put the train in emergency. They have to tell dispatch. They have to get the other trains to go around them so they can fix the air hose and then get on their way. I will be glad to take a few more questions before I hand it back over to Dr. Paul. Yes, ma'am.
Are there extensive safety procedures that you go through?
As a rail fan? Funny thing you asked that. Safety is the number one rule on all the railroads. Norfolk Southern is one of the leaders in that because they always tell them wear hard hat, wear safety glasses, and a safety vest. I usually wear a safety vest at nighttime, and I wear safety glasses over my eyes, especially when cold goes through because it just blows all off the car. And what I do is I used to wear a hard hat. I have a hard hat at home that I used to wear in case something flies up and hits me in the head. But I just be aware of my surroundings because anything can happen. And safety for me as a rail fan is important, and same as a company. Very, very good question. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Let me just share one more real quick thing before I know it's 12 o'clock, before we get